Hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm an Associate Wealth Advisory Director with Financial Alliance, and I've been with the company for 12 years now. I think this is one of the better decisions I've made in my life. So at least so far so good. Yeah. Damien?
Myself. Hi everyone, my name is Damien. I'm a Wealth Advisory Director with Financial Alliance, Pinnacle Wealth Group. I think this is my 8th year with Financial Alliance, previously from the banks. Couldn't have made a better decision to come over because this is where I can be a father to my children and an advisor to my friends.
I think the biggest mistake that young adults or anyone can make, right, is to not spend money on things that really make them happy or which brings them value. Because first off, money can buy you convenience, it can buy you comfort, happiness, it can buy you travels, hobbies, it allows you to give to your loved ones. So money can do a lot, right? But as a young working adult, resources are limited.
True.
You only earn a certain level of income. So I feel that it's really, really important to really spend on the things that makes you happy. Because if you don't, you will end up feeling very unfulfilled. So I guess that's I would think, biggest money mistake that young adults can make. Yeah, and I do see it with some of the case studies that I've done with my clients. Like sometimes when I do their cash flow analysis and I see that they spend so much money on food. So I will ask them a question like, are you a foodie? And they say, no, I don't care about food. Then to me, it doesn't make sense, right? Because if you don't care about food, but you're spending so much of your income on food itself, your $8 Starbucks, your $50 lunch out, then it will give you a lot less to spend on things that really matter to you. So personally for me, for a young adult, the biggest money mistake that you can make is to spend on things that don't add value to your life. What about you?
For myself, actually just now when you were talking about food, you didn't stare at my stomach, right?
Oh, I tried my best to avoid that. Yeah.
Right, I think biggest money mistake I usually say is the truth of it, right? It's not paying your future self first. And I think it kind of ties in with what you said, right? Spending on things that give you true happiness than transient happiness. I mean, there's always a saying, right, that money can't buy you happiness, but the truth is that it can make things a lot easier.
Yes, it can.
Right, and so I think with money, as a means to an end, we want it to help our future self, right, be in peace, as opposed to spending it all today. And a lot of times, right, this money trap, not paying yourself first, ties up with a lot of things. I remembered, when I started work, credit cards became a thing on my second paycheck.
Okay.
And a lot of my friends, so it was tough because slowly, right, we started having talks among ourselves, you got to clear off your full credit card. And then it became this tussle of juggling which one do you pay first, and it rolls over. And having been through that, right, it's all a function of that time got girlfriend, now wife. You want to show your partner, right, that hey, I can provide for you. So you work CBD, you eat CBD, you drink CBD, and suddenly, right, there's nothing left in the bank, right? So I think in terms of money mistakes, this would be probably the core one when I think about young adults, when I think about my younger self. Yeah.
And I think the reverse is also true. Like you have to spend on things that brings you joy, right? So like for myself, right, I value convenience a lot. So when I just started out working, I was very frugal. No, I never eat in CBD. But I also took a lot of like public transport, buses and MRT. And it was difficult because I hated commute, right? And then there came a point in time where I just wasn't happy. And I decided that it's not worth it.
Commute is stressful. I remember waking 4 trains in my first job to finally get on.
Oh my God, goodness, yeah. So likewise for me. So I decided one day that taxi is worth paying for. And it changed my entire quality of life. And I was able to save more on other things because I don't end up trying to make up for it. Like, oh, I need to treat myself to a nice dinner. Right? So, yeah. So I think when you spend on things that really matter to you, that really brings you joy, it is worth it. But a mistake would be to really, like what we have mentioned, to spend on things that just don't matter.
In fact, I think just now you mentioned something about convenience, right? I think it's not just convenience in terms of services that we use, but convenience in terms of not thinking so much about our financial future as well. So I'll be the first to confess, right? Early on, I already had the idea that I wanted to build something with my money. So that was a noble thought, right? You don't want to be frivolous about it. It ended up becoming a mistake that is so common across friends and people that I meet down the years, right? And that's using your hard-earned money in your early months while you're figuring it out to invest in things that you didn't understand. And then you just took the advice of a very well-informed and very well-meaning colleague. Then turns out, right, that his hard work of research and looking at charts and everything was simply based on a hunch. And then we pay school fees together.
Okay. The good thing is you paid the school fees early.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It wasn't small though. I mean, relative to our income at the time,
correct.
Every single cent counted when suddenly you have freedom, you got cut. You compound that with that. Right? It wasn't cool.
I think hearsay is really very important. Not important, very scary.
Scary,
scary. Like, it's the one thing that I hear from my clients that I'll be like, oh my god, alarm bells. Like, I heard my client or my colleague did this. I'm like, okay.
And they tell you when they earn money.
They never tell you when they lose.
Exactly. So I think, at least for myself, these were the money mistakes, not paying my future self and falling into debt, and finally listening to hunches when it comes to investment.
Hunches are just hunches after all, right?
Yeah. I think the one I hear the most would be, oh, I'm too young, nothing will happen to me. And I was there before. In fact, this whole thing has realigned even after being a parent, right? I think we have seen young kids already have critical illness.
Yes.
I've had peers in their mid-30s, early 30s go back and see Jesus already. So, this whole thing about being too young and nothing will happen to me slowly started to fade out of the picture. As we start to see people get excluded, people make claims. I think that's the first one. And the second one is I have no money to invest on my first paycheck. I remember back then, during my time, fresh grad pay was $2,200.
Wow.
Right? Then after CPF, 20% off, I take home about $1,600. But back then I was surviving on an allowance of, a few $100s only. So where got no money to invest? And of course, in the end, I paid some school fees. Eventually, we made it right. Yeah, but I think these are the two things that I hear the most from my young ones, and I'm glad that with generation to generation, it's much easier now because there's so much information being blasted at them. You need to invest, you need to insure, you need to do this, you need to do that. What about yours?
I want to add on to your point. I think, to be fair, right, to a young working adult in their 20s, 10 years is a long time. 20 years is a long time.
True.
The perception of time is very different to someone in the 40s, 50s, or 30s for the matter, right? And because of that, they will feel like, I have time to do it.
Fair.
But one thing I think they don't realize is that time accelerates when you age.
Oh, of course.
Right? So, and health deteriorates when you age. So I can understand why, there's that misconception that they have time because they're young. Yeah. But it's really something to really avoid. The other thing that I feel that one misconception that people may have, young adults may have when it comes to financial planning, insurance or investment, is that they feel like, I just need to do it once and then I'm done.
Yes.
Right?
Heard that a lot.
But the things, or sometimes I meet people and they say, oh no, I've done it like 5 years back. But especially when you're a young adult, your life stage changes very quickly in your early years. You are buying house, you're getting married, having kids. So insurance needs would change, right? Your financial needs would change. So it's only reasonable, I think, to adjust as your life stage changes, right? Same thing for investment and anything for the matter. Financial planning is basically a function of our income. If your income has increased, you can't just do it once when you just start working and then don't look at it until 10 years later. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think that's the other misconception that I feel that some young adults may have. Like, oh no, I've done it, so I don't need to do it again.
Actually, I want to add on to that point, right? Like young adults have done it. And I think at that point in time, I remember when I first took up my coverage as a fresh grad. I think 3 months in, I did something about it. And the very first thought that came into my mind was, this is expensive. And then as I joined this career, right, I also hear it a lot from all my fresh grad clients that came on board. And after a while, I realized that the perfect answer to that is insurance really expensive? If you find it hard to afford this $100, $150 or even $200 a month, can you afford then when something happens to pay off what's to come? And so I think that is another misconception that really needs to be addressed, because using a small portion to cover an entire large portion is logical, but we all don't run on that same logic sometimes, right?
And when you are working, we can't just run back home and rely on our parents anymore, right? I mean,
get out. Yeah.
We have to count on ourselves or insurance or emergency cash to really help ourselves when the need comes up.
Adulting.
Yeah, adulting, sadly.
Truth be told, I find, after talking to a lot of my younger clients, they feel that investments is an extremely mysterious thing. And there's a aversion, some call it a legalized casino even.
Okay.
And there's an aversion to touch the unknown. And just like that, right, years past them. Right, so I remember when back then when I was still in banking, that was during the Lehman crisis. Perfect opportunity. Our clients, when I was a RM, were talking to us, you need to buy into Citibank, you need to buy into X, you need to buy into Y, because this is probably going to be your most informed punt ever. If they survive this, they're going to shoot the moon.
Okay.
And back then, among all the RMs, we're all in our 20s, we were talking about it. And then there's so much fear, because we only had that little. We are getting out of debt, like you said, marriage, kids are coming on. And I would say half did nothing. Half tried, the remaining half, some tried a little, some went a lot. No prizes for guessing who made bank and who didn't. Then this remaining half, right, after finally, realizing that people have actually gained, right, then it comes down to a function of time, really. So this misconception that investments is scary, don't touch what you do not know, I would suggest that start in a small way. You don't have to do everything big, and you won't win all the time. But if you win more often than you lose, then you're on a good track. And this is essentially, the markets, the economy, and investment. Yeah.
I think the other thing that I will add on would be that, young adults, right, as you mentioned, they have less resources.
Yep.
So they will feel like, I will wait till when I have more, then I'll start investing.
Common.
It's very, very common.
Yeah.
But my view is that, you made a comment about mistakes just now, right? I think that if you were to make a mistake, it would be better to make it while you are young than when you're old.
More runway to correct them in the future.
Correct. Because sometimes, and because there's volatility in the market, when you enter early or when you invest early, you get used to the volatility, you realize that that's just part of investment.
And you manage your emotions better.
Precisely.
Right?
And when you have a lot more money, you will be able to invest more comfortably. And you realize that it's really about, as you mentioned, a function of time. And letting your investment grow because there's value to it.
That's true.
Yeah. So I think the misconception is really to wait to have more money. But actually, the better way is to just get started.
And eventually get from trying to make money and losing sleep to earning money while you sleep.
Yeah,
something
true.
like that, right? Because it's restful.
True. Yeah, it's very true.
So some advice, after having gone through this whole thing, right, would be, if you're afraid, then find someone that has been tenured in this space, has a track record, find an advisor.
Yours truly.
I think us, right? Yeah. Even just having that conversation alone would, if you have enough curiosity, you will get started. And I think the key thing is to get started. And then read up more, bounce off that conversations, make an informed decision and live with it, right? And also, since you're going to start investing, then at least define your horizon clearly. If you're a fresh grad, then you've got your whole life ahead of you. So be in it for the long haul, don't end up like what we're seeing in the most recent market correction. No matter how we try, some people will fail to manage emotions and they will sell when it's making a loss. But they were the very same people that come in when everyone was trying to buy in and they bought it high.
Correct.
Right, so that would be one big one. And what other money? Act your wage, act your wage. Right? Don't try to live up to the Joneses. Always have an eye towards your 5-year, your 10-year, your 15-year, your 20-year, and you won't fall too far off. How about you?
Same thing on all that you have mentioned, and also like for all your expenses you're spending, spend on things that really add value to your life, things that make you happy, and then make the responsible decision. And don't delay because really time is ticking.
FIRE simply means financial independence, retire early, right? And everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
So you're very passionate about this. I'll let you go first.
I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of financial freedom, and I think that people should make it a priority and one of their key goals in life. But I'm not a fan of FIRE itself because of 2 points, right? Number one, I think there's a too big focus on just using money as a criteria of making decisions.
Okay,
right?
Can you elaborate? Yeah.
So for example, if today I'm trying to achieve FIRE and I want to cut my expenses to the bare minimum,
okay,
right? Then do I live off instant noodle? Or should I spend a little bit more for a more balanced diet?
Okay.
So money is an important criteria, but it shouldn't be the only criteria when making decisions.
Okay.
And so far from the stories I've heard, it seems like people are really overly focused on just the cost of things itself, which I don't agree to. Yeah. And the second point is that I feel that FIRE has this very a bit sad meaning to it because it's about delaying gratification, it's delaying desires, delaying your things that you want to do, perhaps. But honestly, who's to say that you're going to live to 30
Exactly.
or 35 or 40 for the matter? And I feel like it gets people to like really delay happiness, which I do not think should be the way we live lah. Yeah. And as mentioned, there's a lot that money can do. So I still go back to the point of being financially wise, but still living very fulfilling lives. Yeah.
I hear you. In fact, when I think of FIRE, right, I think it's been talked about for quite a number of years already. And after just being FIRE, it ended up being skinny FIRE, fat FIRE, lean FIRE, all kinds of FIRE. Yes. And when you look at it, right, it's quite straightforward. There are two kinds of people in the world. Those, right, that can sprint and run very fast, but they cannot go a long distance. And then those, right, that can do marathon.
True.
So those, right, they are trying to achieve FIRE super fast, like you said, they become very lean. They can, they measure money they measure life in terms of money.
Yes.
Right, and there's very fixed goals. But then, I mean, if you try to start as early as being a fresh grad, how much can you accumulate and how long can you stretch that dollar down the road, right? Then this becomes the sprinters, and then it becomes disillusioned when they cannot meet that money goal. And I've met a few. Then they eventually come, I give up on FIRE, tell me how I can do this better. Right? But the intent was right in the first place because you don't want to be reliant on a salary.
Yes.
You don't want to be a slave to the system, as some put it, right? So then, let's not get into quiet quitting and all that. Then there's the other side where they're a little bit more lenient on themselves. They want to achieve financial independence.
Yes.
But the retire early, how you define that early, it becomes a little bit more flexible based on life stage changes. Because if you were just yourself, FIRE can achieve very fast.
Yes.
Right? You continue living with your parents forever. But eventually, if you move on to having more responsibilities, how early is early going to be? What kind of lifestyle are you going to provide for them? You are happy, are they happy? Right? We obviously need to be considerate to the people around us as well. And then if you have bigger dreams like that in terms of asset acquisition, for example, then that might delay even further. And then combined with what you just said, right?
Yeah.
Are you happy?
Yes.
Are you enjoying yourself on this journey? Yes. Then if this has a different meaning to every different person, then all the more I think you need to be honest with yourself when it comes to what is independence, what is early. And if you don't have a concrete answer to that, and forums is the only place you're getting your life answers from, right? Speak to a professional. Right? Or close friends that have tried it, worked for them, didn't work for them. I think, that's what I think about FIRE. The intent is okay, but the manifestation so far has been a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Right?
And also the thing about retire early, I feel that if you are able to find, I could be very idealistic, but if you're able to find work that you really enjoy, then there's no need to rush to retire, precisely. So I very much would prefer to have financial freedom while being in a role that I enjoy and can do for a long time. So not a fan.
Not a fan. I would say that adopt the ideals.
Yes.
And then make it something that you can digest. No point forcing yourself to eat white rice only every day when you enjoy the other dishes.
Yes.
Yeah. If someone came to me and said that they wanted to FIRE, then I would need to ask them, what is their definition of FIRE? What exactly are you trying to achieve out of this? In terms of housing, in terms of marital goals, in terms of children, and your expectations of a future lifestyle. If you can quantify all this in reasonable ways, then we can measure the number of years that it will take you to get there. Right? Then obviously it becomes a two-way cooperation kind of thing where we become accountability partners. Then I think whether we're on track, whether we're off track, at least there's a pacer to guide you there. And if we can't, then we realign. We don't have to be too fixated on this because this is self-imposed. It's not like, you die, have to do it kind of thing. How about Yvonne?
I think if someone comes to me and say that, I want to achieve FIRE, firstly, I will say it will be the same thing to ask about the intention. We have to be realistic that it's not easy to live in Singapore, right? Like we need money to live a decent level of
1 million HDB.
Yeah. So if someone comes to me and say that, I want to achieve FIRE because my life goal is to be a social worker, I want to volunteer in Africa, but I need to make sure that my finances are in place first because it's what matters to me. I need to be financially responsible. Then I'll be very happy to plan for her. And like you say, really quantify that goal and to really set out a plan to achieve it. But it has to be we have to make it such that there is an option A and option B.
Yep.
Option A, you achieve it at 40, but life will be tougher. Option B, you do what I would give two options, one A, one B, and you decide like the scale that you want to take on. Yeah, so that's what I would do.
Adding on, right, to whatever you just said, FIRE, right, is intrinsically looking at potentially just yourself, and unless it's a joint decision by a couple. But don't forget that no man lives on an island. Our parents got got problem, it's also us.
Yes.
Or potentially might fall on us. Now, let's not talk about relationship, like close to parents, not close to parents, close to siblings, not close to siblings. But these are very real issues. And family tends to be the first social safety support net.
Yes.
Right? And if we only cut ourselves so thin, just to achieve that goal, right? You only need some extraneous factor like that.
Yes.
And your plans might get thrown haywire. And will you be very unhappy about it?
Yes.
Or will you leave some fat behind, So don't just manage yourself when you fire. Manage those around you as well, because you never know what might happen.
And you will mention couplehood, right? It's also important to enroll your spouse into this whole
Exactly
idea, right?
You want to fire, she want to water.
Just dissolve, yeah, it's true. So for cryptocurrency, right, I think I believe in the technology behind cryptocurrency. And technology is the future, for sure. But as an investment vehicle itself, I feel like there's still a lot that people are not certain about. That which means to say there is no price point like gold, whereby people can fall back to. Which means to say if you use crypto as your core investment portfolio, I would personally find it a bit too volatile for me. And I would think that many different things, many black swan events can happen that could jeopardize my entire investment portfolio.
Fair.
So I believe in it, but in terms of allocation, I would think that maybe a modest allocation would be better than, young adults who go all into one single crypto. I think that would be a bit too risky, at least in my opinion.
Okay, so I won't speak for everyone, but I could speak based on some of the experiences my young clients and older clients have had about crypto. No cryptic answers here, all pun intended. Right? So, like you said, right, at the end of the day, when it comes to crypto, Web3, we are trying to price the eventual future real-world application of the technology itself. And I think during the early days of Bitcoin and until today, we've had a lot of young kids that became crypto millionaires, right? We commemorate the day when the first Bitcoin was exchanged for real-world pizza, right? But through the entire cycle, we have seen it shoot phenomenally, and then we have also seen it come crashing back down.
Yes.
And along that curve, there are people that got burned.
Yes.
Right? And so the question is, what is your expectation of this investment, right? I think most people walk in thinking, I want it to moon, and then I can achieve whatever I want to achieve in quick time. However, this is something that is extraneous, it's out of our control. So you're technically buying a 4D ticket if you didn't understand this whole thing. Now, there are a lot of people that got lucky. And because a lot of people got lucky, a lot more people think they can get lucky. But I agree with you. Having a portion of it in your portfolio, knowing what price points it has hit in its short history as compared to other classes is important. Go in there, two eyes open. If you lose it, that was what you're prepared to lose. If you moon, I'm happy for you. Now let's safeguard that, right? So that you can fire early, perhaps, right? Or you can be a better provider for whatever you want to achieve.
And I think if you really want to increase your odds, right, put the odds in your favor, really go for someone go to get professional advice. There are really fund managers, there are investors who are really, they devote their entire 24/7 to investing in crypto. And I would think that, it's probably proven that people with more experience would probably have a higher probability of getting a good investment rate of return rather than just trying, I just want this coin.
I like your keyword, probability.
Yeah,
I
think about probability.
All investments are the same.
It's true.
Right? Do we make an informed choice, right? Or do we take a punt?
Yes.
I think that fine line there needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Regardless. Hey, look at the time. We don't want to overrun. The videographer also needs to have lunch. Right? Yeah, but it's great, right? I get to know about my colleague today. And also, I think we've covered quite a bit of things. We've got some money, right? Whether you are young or whether you're in your 30s, FIRE, what we think about it, misconceptions, mistakes, investments, punt, being informed. At the end of the day, I think that it's always good to make a well-informed decision, speak to a lot of people, and then start early.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, I think there'll be many other videos that'll be coming on from Financial Alliance. So.
And if our viewers have any questions, they can just leave us a comment. And if not, please remember to like, share, subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss important updates. And in our next video, we will be touching on questions that people are dying to ask millennial advisors like ourselves.
Millennial.
Yes,
You're so kind.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.